Committee to order, and this meeting is being recorded. Excellent. Okay. For those who are unaware, my name is Emily Grantstaff-Rice. I am the chair of this committee, and we have a posted agenda, which we will follow once I get it up and running. I had downloaded it and then put it away. Okay. Our first order of business is to vote on the meeting minutes from August 18th, 2025. I know that they were circulated today. Not everyone may have had a chance to look at them, but want to make sure that we can review them now if you're interested. And Sean, I see your hand up.
Just wondering if we should do a roll call to open the meeting as it is a virtual meeting.
Yep, I just went right into it, but thank you for keeping me on
Uh,
ceremony.
that's what I'm here for,
Sean,
right?
before we go into meeting minutes, Sean Burke will take a roll call.
Great. Okay. Rich Raish, Mayor Ballantine, Andre Green, Ruben,
Present.
all right, Jill, Courtney Gosselin,
Present.
Kathleen Seward,
Present.
Ed Bean,
Here.
Jesse Clegane,
Present.
Christopher Ames,
Here.
Courtney Koslov,
Here.
Emily Grantstaff-Rice,
Here.
Daniel Grayton,
Here.
Richard Heidelbrecht,
Here.
and Suraj Ravashi.
Here.
All right. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, second order of business will be the August 18th, 2025 meeting minutes. Are there any comments on the meeting minutes? Jesse.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just that my last name is spelled wrong in one place. It's spelled with a K, but that's just
Oh,
point out.
apologies. I see it right here. I will fix that for the forum meetings. Thank you.
Extremely important. I caught two other names, and I apologize that I didn't catch that one on my own review. So, my apologies.
No big deal.
Any other comments? Okay, let's proceed to a vote. I'm going to pass it off to you, Sean, for roll call. Well, actually, I apologize. Do I need to ask for a nomination
Yes.
to vote? Yes.
I move to vote to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Thank you, Courtney.
Second.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, I'm going to pass it off to you, Sean, for a roll call for the vote to approve the meeting minutes from August 18th.
Okay, Ruben,
Aye.
Courtney Gosselin,
Approve.
Kathleen.
I'll abstain since I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. Ed,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Christopher,
Yes.
Courtney Koslow,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
and Suraj.
Yes.
Great. That's a pass.
Excellent. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is, I always find it funny when the item is old business, but that's what it is. The CAG updates. And Sean, I'm going to ask, do you know who will be providing the CAG update?
Ken will be.
I will
Excellent.
be providing the CAD update.
Thank you, Ken.
Of course. So we had the survey for Winter Hill closed last week, and we had a strong response, over 2,000 response. It's supposed to be one of the largest survey responses the city ever received. So in our following CAG meeting, the results of the survey, community engagement process, including tabling, will be presented to the CAG so they can incorporate to their deliberation. as well as the community communication team plan focus groups taking place throughout the first half of October. And CAG and the city is working with the Dream consultants to coordinate that effort as well. All this coordination will go into the deliberation that CAG will make. That's all the update for that I
Awesome.
have.
I'm going to ask a question, then I'll open it up
Mhm.
to the rest of the committee. Is there a timeline by which the recommendation will be forwarded?
So it is the conversation is November. Like by November meeting, CAG will have a concrete recommendation unless if they needed more time to deliberate, there will be another meeting schedule. So we haven't made that decision yet. The conversation are still ongoing, but I can keep updated, follow up and keep updated to the group.
Excellent. I open up any other questions from the committee about the CAG update. Yes, Courtney.
I was wondering at the last CAG meeting, I didn't watch or attend or watch it afterwards, but I did hear there was some interesting information presented about the expected cost of the different locations. I don't know if that's a kind of thing that we could get quick updates on. I mean, maybe that's now, kind of past. But even though they're two separate things, there's a lot of, I think, good cross pollination that we should get and learn here for little slices. I don't know if that could fit in at some point.
I think we could definitely make a request for that. It's funny, I was talking to one of my own clients today about the timing of cost, and the conversation was we have to be careful about knowing where costs are coming from and also what they're being based off of. And this committee, our purview is to work with the designer to come up with solutions. There will be multiple cost estimators engaged, so that there are always two opinions of what the cost might be. And I'm a little concerned about relying too much on some preliminary numbers now that we're at this stage where we're about to go through this process ourselves. That's just my personal opinion. So I'm just sort of curious. I kind of open it up to others, and maybe PMA, you can weigh in on this. Um, I worry a little too much about attaching numbers to this right now without the work that we're about to do.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We'll have through our design team our own estimators, and we'll have PMA will have an estimator, and the design team will have an estimator. And at the point when there's enough information about the project, it will be sent out to our design team for estimation. Before that, I'm not really sure exactly what they're estimating, if it's just straight square footage. But the earlier you put out numbers that are not solid based on a specific project, I guess the less accurate they could be. And I think for here, it would be better to wait, as Emily had said, until we have a little bit more information about the project, until we have more, so we can get a more solid number out to the public.
That makes sense. The one thing that I had in mind specifically, as I understood at the last meeting, the presentation included what it would cost to rebuild the new park that would have to be replacing if it were at Trump Field. And I just want to make sure those things, and we could get to that down the line, but that we're thinking about the whole and not just the building, but just the total cost of all the things that have to happen in different scenarios.
That will be part of our estimate as well. It will be the full package. If there's an Article 97 land swap and then the park is to be relocated at the Winter Hill, that'll
Yeah.
all need to be taken into account as part of our project and paid for through this project.
Okay, great.
That's a really, really good point. And I think also, as we go down the line, thinking about the cost of moving stuff from Edgerly to a new building, and I just use that as an example. I'm not saying don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but just making sure that it's a total project cost and not just isolated portions of it. That's a really great reminder. Any other questions regarding the CAG update? Okay, sounds good. Okay. The next order of business is the designer selection results. And this is probably one of those most exciting opportunities for us to get a report. The designer selection board meeting happened last Thursday. Rightfully, it was postponed from the original date that we had set in our meeting minutes from the 23rd to the 25th in honor of Rosh Hashanah to make sure all could participate. So it occurred last Thursday, and Rich, Ruben, and Courtney were the designated representatives of the district. And I'm actually going to sort of pass it to Sean to give his overall impressions. And then I'd love to hear directly from Ruben and Courtney their impressions and experience of how it went. And as Kin had mentioned in an email, our selected designer was Perkins Eastman. So Sean, I'll pass it off to you.
Sure. So just as a reminder, this is the MSBA process. There's 8 modules. We're still in the form of the team module. We have selected an architect. We'll talk a little bit more about that process, about getting them on board and contracting them as we go through. And then our next phase will be moving into the feasibility study, where we're going to study all the different options in varying levels of detail to get a good sense of what are the options for this project, and then we will break those down into a certain number of options, which would be submitted to the MSBA, and then those will be pared down into fewer options. And then there'll be another set of reviews, and then you will eventually go to the MSBA with your preferred plan, which will move into schematic design, and then eventually into the budgetary phase where the MSBA approves the total budget for the project. So for designer selection, as Emily said, we had the meeting on the 9th, which is the first one. Yeah, you're right. This one was moved to the 25th for the holiday. And in the first meeting, it was the shortlist meeting. So we just looked at the proposals were looked at, and with the MSBA designer selection panel and the 3 members of the DSP that were assigned from the city, they went and shortlisted 3 firms. And then on the 25th, they interviewed those 3 firms and made the final selection. So as a reminder, that first meeting on the 9th, these were the 6 firms that were submitted. And as a result of the of that first meeting, here's the vote results. And Miller, Dyer Spear, Perkins Eastman, and William Ron Associates were the 3 highest point getters with 28, 19, and 19. So these 3 firms moved on to the next round for interviews, which happened about 2 weeks later. So 2 weeks later, as Emily said, on the 25th, Perkins Eastman was voted. They were the highest ranked firm after their interviews, with Miller, Dyer Spears next and William Ron after that. I would say that all of the presentations were fantastic. They were really strong firms, and really you had a really good bunch here. And I think any one of them could have done this job. I think, as Emily said, maybe the DSP members who are present here may want to talk a little bit about their experience with this and why, in their mind, Perkins Eastman might have been, edged them out and from the entire group. But it was really great to see that the interest and the care and the time that each of the design firms really put in. They really thought about Somerville. They thought about this program and the school, and Perkins Eastman just happened to come out on top this time.
And I just want to say before we dive into it, we were so well represented by Rich, Ruben, and Courtney. I could not have been more proud. You asked very important, insightful questions. You were able to follow up on things. And I think you really put your time and energy in it, both in the short list and in the deliberation after the interviews. It was a long morning. And I just want to say personally, thank you on behalf of the committee, but also the city. And this is a monumental thing. So I'm really curious about your reactions, what the process was like, and ultimately, what led you to the decisions that you made.
Courtney, do you want to start?
You're welcome to, if you'd like.
I mean, this is like releasing a child in a candy shop. Is that right? Like, the options that they provided were quite impressive. The way they walked us through the process, both the idea process as well as the actual design, was quite impressive. Obviously, Perkins, in my mind, and Williams, Ron, really came to the top. I know that other folks have different preferences, but I was really impressed with the actual understanding of the needs of our population, as well as understanding the community in which this school is going to be built. I was just impressed. It was really a really difficult decision. I mean, the three firms have a lot to say, and it really made me excited about what's coming next for this community. So they were able to actually help me visualize what are some of the potential changes that we can introduce to the community based on the way they were dreaming about what's possible for this next site. But it was really exciting. I'm glad I went through this process. But I think as you said, we have a great choice here to make, and I think that it is a win-win for all of us. So, thank you.
Yeah, and I would add I agree. It was a really interesting and meaningful experience. I choose architects for my affordable housing developments all the time, but this was different, and they were all great. And you could see here from the scoring, the three of us from the city all had a preference for Perkins Eastman or William Ron. I was the last one to vote, and it came down to the end. And I saw where we had a separate little Teams chat where he was tallying this, and I could see where it was heading. And I wanted to make sure Perkins Eastman at that point did outdo MDS Sasaki, which I just, in case something didn't add up quite right. So I just decided to go with Perkins Eastman. Just to quickly say on MDS and Sasaki, they're a really, really strong team. And I think you could see that the standing members of the DSP were more leaning towards them, even though the district had said in our comments before we voted that we had a preference for the other two. I think because they knew particularly Sasaki was really good with urban sites, but I didn't feel like they did much work at all to really understand us at this point. And I know it's a lot to ask of people. You're putting in this application, you don't know if you're going to get it, but you could see what Perkins Eastman and William Ron did specifically to understand us. So to me, that kind of put them aside. They were really focused on that. They have a CAG member on the MDS Sasaki. I think they thought that was going to be their winning point, but so kind of we put them aside. Perkins Eastman, I felt had a fantastic team that they had put together, and I really appreciated the way they put their application. It was clear they were going to focus on all the parts that were going to make this a great school building, from the building itself and sustainability, which was key. And we asked a lot of questions on that. But also, do they have, this has a autism spectrum program. They had people who had background and knowledge in neurodiversity. There was people who understood security and educational components, how to think about the educational aspects and different ways to group it. Universal design to make sure that anybody could come to this building and access it in the same way, regardless of their abilities. And the list kind of went on. So I was really impressed with that. And then at the end, they did this fly through 3D concept of what a building, if it were to be on 115 Sycamore, acknowledging we don't know where it's going to be, of what this building could look like. And like, it was there, like you were walking up Sycamore, you're on Medford, and the folks who were on there could see, I got so choked up by this. I had to go off camera to let myself actually cry. And I didn't expect it. It was just one of those things that hit me. And I think it was after all that the school community has been through, and knowing like how much our school, what a wonderful school community we have, and how much they deserve. Everybody here, the educators, the staff, the students deserve the building I saw there. It was just gorgeous. So that was really amazing. And then William Ron had this other approach where they had listened. All their pictures were of Winter Hill, like the students and activities. And they had an image of Maze Garden, which those of you who know, the school we have at Sycamore Street, this outdoor classroom, which is actually named after my daughter, who died a few years ago. And they had the picture, and I don't know if they knew or if it was just a So they already kind of were in. They had little anecdotes about the school, and that was really appealing. Their design, their community process would have been led by a Latina-owned architecture firm. That would have aligned really well. They had my heart, and or they had a different part. It's like a, you know, so they would have been fantastic. And so I'm excited, really excited for Perkins Eastman. The principal reached out and emailed the group saying he was excited about working with us. So he's also lives in Somerville. I think each of the members, each of the groups had somebody on the team who lives here. So,
Well, just watching it, I was very proud of the work that you did. And again, I, the way that you brought your heart and your sensibility to it. And you didn't even mention the sustainability, which was a whole other aspect of it as well. I think all of them would have been a good choice, but I'm very happy with where we are and where we're going. And I know others may have watched it. Happy to have your impressions as well, but I'll pass it to Jesse because I see a hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to, I want to thank all three of our designees as well. I did listen in on the first meeting, and like you said, represented Somerville extremely well, as we knew they would. But I do want to specifically point out Courtney Coslow, who I had brought some concerns from constituents to her about whichever firm was chosen, and she was able to get those answered for me via email with the MSBA folks, and they also emphasized the points about passive house and other issues that we had concerns about. So I just want to thank her for doing that so quickly, and yeah, and just great job by all.
thanks, Jesse.
I'm glad I was not on the other side of it because I've interviewed and those are tough things to do. So, all good things. Any other reflections about the designer selection? Questions? Okay. So we are going to roll into the next part of it, which is what happens next. Now we're going to go. Sean, is there anything else that you want to talk about? You want to give some examples
No,
of what we saw? Sure.
we just had this was from the original, just to remind people who Perkins Eastman is. They're staff of 37 with 19 registered architects, a big firm in Boston. Their leads for this are Daniel Leister and Bob Bell, who have each over 30 years of experience in architecture. Bob's been with the firm for 30 years, and then Daniel 9 and Lisa 5. I also talked to I also talked to a member of the team today because the next thing we're going to do is get into contracting, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And this is what their original proposal was looking at. And from here until the presentation with the 3D flyover, they spent a lot of time and effort just on this, as Courtney said, developing a full 3D model of what it could look like. And it was very impressive. So our next steps are contracting. So I talked to city procurement today, and we're going to have a meeting with them and capital projects tomorrow, just to get the ball rolling. We've already Angela in the procurement department is already looking through all the documents and information. She'll provide a list of everything she needs. And I talked to Perkins Eastman today. They're getting their subcontractors on board, and they will be sending us over a fee to start looking at that with the city. Typically, time for contracting the city is about 3 to 4 weeks before they get fully under contract. And then once we get under contract with that design team, we will work with them to really finalize their design schedule. Talking to them today, the schedule that was in the RFP, they are happy with it. They think we gave them enough time. But as part of the presentation, a lot of the firms noted that there may be some room to improve on schedule and to accelerate, which we're certainly happy to do. As long we're not going to try to go too fast, but any time we can save is going to end up being savings to the district. So we will work with them to get a schedule that we're all happy with, and then we will take that schedule, put it into our master schedule, and see how that runs up against the MSBA board dates, and try to for the next meeting we'll kind of parse out when all these different phases will happen, when our deliverables to the MSBA will be due, and looking down for the next year and a half of all the different dates that we're going to be needed. And then we can start talking about city vote dates and things like that. But we really need the designer on board and contracted first before they're going to submit a schedule to us, and then we will run out the schedule from there once they get on board. Generally speaking, DSP happened in September, so we're looking to get the contractor on board in October. We'll start with the educational development, and then the PDP, which is your preliminary design program. This is looking at all the different available sites and all the different options and configurations that the MSBA provided. We'll have to provide some detailed analysis of that. That will go probably until end of February, early March, and then we'll roll into our preferred schematic response. This is where you'll take some of those options from the PDP, develop them further, get some more information, and then this committee will decide what is their preferred option, and that'll be submitted to the MSBA. Right now, our schedule shows it sometime in late 2026, September 2026, and then once that's submitted to the MSBA and approved to move forward, we'll go into schematic design. And the schematic design period will be roughly 5 to 6 months. And at that point, it gets submitted to the MSBA with a fully vetted budget. And we'll have estimates from 2 design firms, or we'll have 2 estimates one from the design firm, one from the OPM. That will get reconciled, submitted to the MSBA, and the MSBA board of directors will vote on your total project budget agreement. And then at that point, you have 120 days to secure funding through the city. And then we're off to design development, 60%, 90%, and then we start building.
Just for clarification, when I see spring 2027, do you anticipate that this is a vote that's going to the entire city of Somerville? Or
So
are you referencing the vote from the MSBA?
So the MSBA, the target board approval based on our RFP schedule that we had for the designers would have them it's their board meeting that's late April. So sometime in the spring, we typically see board approval and then roll out to a district-wide vote shortly after that.
Right. And I think that's something that we'll need to talk with the city about. So, and I think that might be important to put into this calendar as well, to understand when this may be going to the voters of the city of Somerville, if that's the chosen way of funding.
Yes, our RFP schedule envisions it has a placeholder for an early vote, and then it also shows the regular vote as another option. It's a big delay between then. If the MSBA approves you in April and then you go to November, you're talking about maybe a 6-month, 7-month delay. So the reason we put both in there is because the city needs to decide whether or not if they're going to have a special election or whether or not they're going to wait till the November election. And if that happens, it may just extend some of the design periods so that we don't get board approval too early, or we have conversations with the MSBA explaining to them that while we still want to hit a target date, we will not be within that 120 day, and just make sure they're okay with it early on. We want to have those conversations as early as possible.
Yeah, I'm just flagging this for the committee so that we're aware of that timing. I know that these are kids that have been waiting for action for a long time, and that we work expeditiously. Ruben, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate the breaking down the timeline. Sean, you mentioned there is another feasibility section or phase of the project. I think that folks might get confused with the line. Actually, I get confused all the time with all the architectural lingo, but I think it makes sense if there's a way to break down the different phases and possible durations. And I know that every time we provide a time, folks will hold us accountable to that. But I think as long as we provide some kind of flexible language, but I do feel that these timelines and in a visual form would be helpful for me, and also would be helpful to the community. And I think that the actual piece around the voting piece or the technicality around that, I probably might be an internal conversation, but I think that it gives the community an understanding of what are some of the timelines. Also knowing that one of the firms that was actually one of the design firms was actually calling out for finishing the project a year earlier. And so that's information that is out there. So folks will wonder, is this, how is it possible that one firm can provide the deliverable a year earlier? And so that's something that once you whet someone's appetite, they want some clarity around that.
And yeah, for next meeting, as long as we have the architect on board, which I'm assuming will before the next meeting, we'll go into much more detail on schedule. And per your request, I think we'll do exactly that. We'll spell it out. We'll give you kind of start dates, end dates on a bar chart that explains here's the phases and here's the explanation of what they are. But I was a little reluctant to do that without having the designer buy into that.
Understood. Jesse?
Yeah, just on the scheduling piece to Sean, through you, Madam Chair. So I've talked to Rich, and so with regards to the piece of for feasibility report, the city has said that they've talked, that they've made it clear that like we have a lot of this information already from the last go around for the high school, and that a lot of it is still usable. And so I'm just curious how much quicker might that window be for the feasibility piece based on the fact that we have current stuff already in the library.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's really going to be a conversation with the designer once they see that information and allow them to evaluate. And I'm sorry for jumping in for you, Sean.
No, I agree. I think we have a lot of information because we were on the high school project. So certainly all of that will be turned over. We don't have to go overturning rocks looking for lot sizes around all the city. We have all that information. So there will certainly be some savings there. But I think that a lot of the early on is about the educational programming, and that needs to be programmed specifically for, a K through 8 school. And there needs to be a lot of time spent in the K through 8, understanding how Somerville educates their students and making sure that this building is designed and tailored specifically to your current needs. So we're not going to save a whole lot of time on that end, and that's a huge lift. It's a big effort, and it needs to be done, and we need to take our time and be patient about it to make sure it's done correctly.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb, pre-K through 8, and also the same educational planner who was a part of the master plan is also part of this with the Perkins Eastman team. So, exciting.
Could you say that again, Emily? Who is a part of which
Mike
thing?
Perillo, who is part
Uh-huh.
of MLP, Integrated Environments. He is an educational planner. He was involved in the planning with Buyer Blindell Bell that did the larger facilities master plan, which was
For
the pre
Somerville
for Somerville for the
as a
pre-work for
whole.
this. And so he's coming at
Oh,
this with some embedded knowledge.
great.
Suraj.
So is there a specific guideline for the feasibility study? Is that a feasibility study of a design or entire project as such, including the EIA?
Yeah, so I wish this was an AIA standard. This is a Massachusetts School Building Authority special. They have their own process of how they do this. So the feasibility study refers to 2 reports, which is the preliminary design report. So you might hear us say PDP. So that's basically all of the options that are out there. And then a second report, which is the preferred schematic report, the PSR. And the PSR, the submission of the PSR, is what triggers a vote from the MSBA board. So the MSBA board will review it at that point in time to make sure that they agree with that. I think all of this is to get to the point where we understand what are the spaces that are needed in the school, what are the sites that we're looking at, and I would say, some of the unique qualities of the community that need to be folded into this. Once we have those identified in the PSR, the preferred schematic report, that's when we're done with feasibility and we can move into what's called schematic design. Does that help explain? And Sean, correct me if I said any of that wrong.
Thank you.
I think, I think that kind of sums it up. Yeah, the PDP, the preliminary design program, and then the PSR, preferred schematic response, I think is what the MSBA calls it. And that is when you pick what you want your school to be. And that's when the MSBA says, go ahead into schematic design, much more detailed at that point. Really just the architecture of it, the layout, how much square footage you're putting in, a really detailed site layout. And that's the estimate that sets your budget for the entire project after the schematic design.
Yeah, I was going off of your slide, so that's why I call it preferred schematic report. I was trying to be aligned with the
Oh yeah,
visual.
yes.
I think it's the report.
Is it the report? Okay.
I think so.
I might just be calling it the wrong. I might have been calling it the wrong thing for 20 years.
I'm on Emily's side on this one.
Yeah. Once you get the acronyms tattooed,
Yeah.
you know you're in trouble. So one thing
And
at a time.
I'm happy to be corrected as always. But yes, that is generally what happens here. And we will, like I said, we will lay out the timelines around these once we talk to the design team. And I think for the next meeting, the design team should be contracted or at least close enough to be comfortable presenting here. And I think it might make sense to have them present their presentation or some version of the presentation they gave at the MSBA, because I think I think they did a great job, and it will help the committee kind of understand what their thoughts for Somerville are, and maybe get some people's minds rolling and ask some questions about all sorts of different things that are associated with the project.
Suraj,
Yeah,
did that help explain the question?
Sean, I'll just jump in real quick too and say
Yes,
this
thank
Yeah,
won't
you.
okay.
be
Hold on a
this
moment.
won't
Yeah,
be
okay.
this won't be the end of schedule either. You'll see a lot of the schedules throughout the phases for each phase. You'll also see work plans from the architect for each phase and from the OPM for each phase. So we'll have schedule on repeat in a lot of these meetings, but I do understand the curiosity as we jump into this as a team.
Yeah, I want to continue open for questions if anyone has any questions, but I also want to note just to the educators when we start going into the program development, um, you know, your involvement will be critical in that, and I know there will be some asks of you and your staff for participation. So I'm just kind of prepping you that to Mitch's point, when there's additional schedules, as we're starting to look at the meetings that come together, the community meetings, the individual meetings with educators. Um, in my experience, you know, sometimes it's like doing a job and a half, kind of prepping you that ask will be made to be able to go through that. And I don't have any details. A lot of that will be driven by the design team, the educational programmer, and their process, but just a heads up to kind of expect that ask as we go into the next phase. Okay. Um, I'm going to check the list. Okay, we did the designer contract update, the MSBA design schedule update. The next order of business is scheduling our next meeting. And to that point, a lot of this will be dependent on the contracting because we'd like to have the designer come to this. So Sean, I'm going to look to you in terms of your experience with the city and also where we are. What's the right time frame to start to look at the next date?
Yeah, I think we've been holding meetings roughly once a month, so I think that's probably appropriate. So either the 27th of October or the 3rd of November, those are both the Mondays if we're going to hold those Monday meetings. I would suspect that even if we're not 100%, we'd be close enough where the designers would feel comfortable in the process where, it might be sitting on someone's desk waiting for a signature, but historically that when that happens, the design teams usually don't have an issue coming in front of the committee while they're waiting for final signature on a contract. And I would bet that by the end of next month we would be there.
I
Can I?
just want to add, oh, I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I just want to add the 27th October, we have a CAG meeting that evening planned for from 6 p.m. Till
Okay.
8:30. That's in person, most likely. I just want to flag so we know.
Well, if that's the case, it might make sense to have it the week after, because then we might have a designer update and a CAG update simultaneously.
Okay, November 3rd. And the question is virtual versus in person. I personally would vote for virtual since I'll be in Atlanta that date. But November 3rd, any concerns about that?
No.
Okay, sounds good. November 3rd, any concerns about virtual, or is this working for everyone? Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
I will say at some point when I think it would be great for the presentation too, because honestly, sometimes these presentations where you can sit in front of your monitor and really pay attention and read it, it's often easier than some of the spaces that we have. But we should have a meeting in person relatively soon to get everyone in the room. Once the architect gets rolling, I think it would make sense to kind of sit in face to face and kind of meet the entire team and sit in a room with them. So maybe the next one after that, we would try to do an in-person one just to kind of put everyone in the room together and then go from there.
I think that makes sense. Okay, so November 3rd, 4:30 to 6 will be our next meeting. It will be virtual.
Great.
We're going to move into the next phase, which is our public comment period. Anyone from the public is free to speak, tell their mind. I would ask you to stay under 3 minutes, and of course, tell us your name and where you are. So, are there any comments from the public? I do not see any indication that there are. Last call. Okay, I am going to close the public comment period. We have gone through our agenda for today, and any other closing comments before we all move on to other things at 5:14 p.m.? Okay. May I ask for a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
I'll
Thank
second.
you, thank you, Dan. Second for Jill. Sean, I'll pass it to you for the roll call.
All right. Ruben,
Yes.
Courtney Goslin,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Christopher,
Yes.
Courtney Kosla,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Suraj,
Yes.
and Jill.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Great. See you all in November. Have a
Thanks,
good evening.
folks.
November.